Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Michelle here from happyhealthyher.com. And this week's compassionate chat, I just want to share a positive story of signs and synchronicities, particularly as they relate to birds, because birds tend to be some of my most powerful messengers, and recognizing the signs that birds bring to us adds a lot of magic to life, and it actually gives me a lot of clarity as well, and guidance. So I wanted to share something in particular that was super profound that happened this week, and that's going to require a little bit of backstory. So taking you back to 2022, I had a very sweet tuxedo cat named Gladys. I considered her my soulmate cat. She was very empathetic, she was very sweet, and she truly helped me get through my divorce. But in the beginning of 2022, her health took a rapid decline. I knew that she was getting older, and I knew that she wasn't going to be with me for very much longer, but I was really sort of sad to realize that that she was no longer eating, she was no longer her normal vibrant self. And so on 2/2/22, I had to put Gladys to rest. And it was, as I'm sure you can imagine, really, really difficult, really painful period for me. And I told myself, okay, I'm not going to get another cat. But I remembered what Gladys herself had told me, and that was I had consulted an animal communicator before she passed. And she had said she was very grateful that I had allowed her to be the only cat in the house, because she was very much an introvert like me, and she didn't really want another pet friend. But she knew that I wanted more cats. She knew that I would really benefit from more cats. And she actually said this to me through the pet communicator, that when she passed on, she wanted me to get 2 cats, so that when I left the house, I wouldn't feel so nervous all the time, because she could read my energy, and she knew when I would leave for work, I felt so sad about leaving her alone. So she advised me to get 2 cats. And about a month went by, and I just could not stand the quiet and the loneliness in my house. And so I did start seeking other rescue cats. And through an acquaintance, I came across this pair of mother-daughter that were the most beautiful, sweet animals I had ever seen. And I knew immediately that I was already in love with them and that I wanted to adopt them. And so my partner and I drove about 45 minutes to the adoption event, and I had decided they need to pick us. They need to feel comfortable with us. That's always the way animals work. So I set out to watch their behavior, and they both were very much receptive to myself and my partner. And so we went ahead and we adopted them. And it was immediate, like I said, love at first sight. I already loved them so much. And so we get them home though, and I noticed that Lulu is starting to have problems with one of her eyes was tearing quite a bit. And so I took her to a vet, and the vet took one look in her mouth and said, oh my gosh, this animal is very, very sick. She had stomatitis, which is a viral infection that cats get, where they basically become allergic to their own teeth. And the treatment suggested was to have all of Lulu's teeth removed, which absolutely horrified me. The thought of putting an animal through that was really terrible. And I struggled a lot because both Lulu and Gracie, her baby, were the happiest cats I had ever had. And so it was strange for me to think that they might be in pain or that they might be sick. But about a month later, I decided to go ahead and pursue having Lulu's teeth removed. And at that time, the vet looked at Gracie, who was only about a little over a year at that point, and he said, let's just keep an eye on her. We'll just watch her mouth and see if she gets any worse, because she also had the stomatitis. And When Lulu had her surgery, she actually bounced back immediately. Literally within the first 2 weeks, she was like a whole new cat. And so the surgery really worked wonders for her, and she's very, very happy, very, very snuggly. So that's the long backstory of what I've come across this past week. So Gracie, I have been watching her, and with dread, I brought her to the vet a couple weeks ago, and he said, yes, her teeth are showing signs still of the stomatitis, and that she very likely needs to have her teeth removed as well. And I've been really stressed about that, and I've been really sort of asking spirit about what I should do about it. And as a dietitian myself, as someone with a master's in natural healing, of course, what I want to do is take a more natural healing approach. But it's very funny how those of us, even in the field, when it comes down to it, we often cave and do whatever conventional medicine is saying because there's a lot of fear around not doing that. And so I have been sort of on the course of, okay, I better just do what the vet is telling me. And I woke up on this past Monday and I said, you know what? I got to do my due diligence. I have to research this. I need to really scour every inch of the internet to find if there is potentially a natural solution that can help Gracie. So, just as an aside, Mercury, the planet of communication and information, just moved in to Virgo, the sign of analysis and details, and even health. So my mindset was just happened to be, I think, in the right place. And so I get onto the internet and I'm finding all of these different potential remedies and options for helping to boost Gracie's immune system so that she can potentially get over this stomatitis, possibly without having her teeth removed, which, by the way, is starting to look like it might not happen simply because she has some indication in her blood that she might not be able to even have the surgery. So my level of desperation is pretty high. So like I said, I'm on the internet, I'm finding all of these different things, and I'm feeling quite overwhelmed. I must have literally had 20 web tabs open at one point. So I click on a particular remedy that actually looked great. It was probiotics. Why would I not think of giving her probiotics sooner? I'm not sure. But again, sometimes things just elude us. So I'm clicking on this project and I'm overthinking and I'm thinking, okay, is this the product that she needs? And all of a sudden, I see a flash of white in my yard. Now, when I always try to work in front of a window, because that allows me to see signs and pick up signs because I've had them more than once. So I jump out away from my desk and I run and I grab my glasses and I look to see that the flash of white that I had seen in my yard right in front of my window was a pure white dove. I had only ever seen a white dove once before, and even then it was a sign at that time. But here it was this sign, and in my mind immediately I thought, you need to buy her that remedy. And I started to cry, actually. I was so moved because I knew very clearly this is a sign. And this is what's so beautiful is when you start to recognize the signs, they resonate with your body very strongly. And so, of course, I immediately went to looking up what a dove symbolizes. And I'm sure you probably are aware, doves symbolize hope. They symbolize peace. They symbolize love. And they actually symbolize the Holy Spirit itself. And so I was less concerned with those actual meanings and more concerned with the fact that to me, it felt like a sign that I was on the right path and I should pursue the remedies that I was buying. Which, by the way, I also happened to have a coupon at the place where this remedy was being sold. So it was further sort of confirmation and validation that that was the path to take. So my experience with birds has been very steady. They actually tend to be some of my most powerful messengers, and that's why I wanted to share this today. hawk is my sign of validation, and it often is for other people as well. It's a sign of that you are on the right track, or that you need to be looking at something carefully. One of my hawk stories is that if you've listened, I have another synchronicity story that was quite long. I wanted to do this one that was much shorter, but the previous synchronicity story I was talking about in relationship to my divorce, and a hawk appeared right after my now ex and I decided that we were meant to not be together anymore. And so, I mean, such an ultimate validation of that. But another time, I was actually working on my taxes. This is a couple years ago. I do my taxes myself, and I'm sitting in front of the window as I always am with my office desk, and a hawk literally flies right at the window and like makes quite a ruckus. And I was like, what was that? And it immediately then went over and sat on my fence and just stared at me. And I thought for a second, whoa, what's happening? What are you trying to tell me? And I look very clearly into the page that I'm on in my taxes, and I can see that I've made a glaring error. I had put a particular, I think I had put an expense twice. And so it was minor, but it was very glaring, as I said. And so it felt like Hawk didn't want to leave until I corrected it, which I did, and then he promptly flew away. So such beautiful, amazing synchronicity again that gives me the clarity. Vultures also tend to be a sign for me. Now, a lot of people would say, "Oof, vultures, that's a terrible, why would you want that as a sign?" But Spirit will pick whatever resonates with you, or whatever you're able to see the most frequently. And I often see vultures in relationship, and I think it's my dad's spirit speaking to me. They started showing up literally right after his passing. And in fact, my family was lost looking for his grave site. And all of a sudden, I see vultures circling in the sky, and I said, go that way, take a right, take a left. We literally followed the birds, and that was actually where his grave site was. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Another time, my partner and I went to visit his grave. I stood at the grave and I said, Dad, please give me a sign that you're here. And probably a good 3 minutes later, a hawk flew directly overhead, and then several vultures showed up and started swirling. So there's no question in my mind that this is real, and this is something that we can all tap into. And it's so beautiful when you kind of get this clarity. I also, over the years, have researched the meaning of vultures, because it was very confusing to me that Dad would pick that bird. And what I found is that vultures represent never-ending oversight, basically. It's basically a sign that you are being watched and protected all the time. So I think that's beautiful, and I'm super excited when I see vultures. So one last thing, yesterday happened to be 9/11. I was feeling very, very depressed and heavy. I often get depressed and dark on that day simply because of the energetic remembrance, the grief, the loss. And I was just sort of mulling around the house, and I looked outside, and there were 5 cardinals at my feeder. And cardinals are a sign of spirit, and I don't normally see a lot of cardinals. So to see them, especially in that quantity, gave me a lot of clarity that everything is at peace. Things happen the way they are supposed to happen, and we're always connected either way. So I've actually set myself up out here hoping that maybe birds would be showing up over my shoulder, because that's where my feeder is, and I can kind of hear them going, but I'm not sure if any have appeared. But the thing about our signs and our synchronicities is that we have to pay attention to them. So there have been times when I've said to my partner, I don't know why I'm not seeing my signs. And then he says, well, have you gone outside? And I have to giggle because no, I had not been going outside. And so, of course, if your sign is in nature, you have to actually make time in nature. And as I indicated a couple times already, I work with my desk facing outward. I always have done this. I've tried to work when I'm writing so that I'm facing out into nature, and that allows me to get the signs and to get inspiration in a different way. And it's such an amazing and powerful tool, but you have to consciously do that. You also have to eradicate doubt, because this sounds wild. This sounds unbelievable. But the more you believe and the more you recognize and the more you acknowledge it with gratitude, the more these signs show up. And it's such a fantastic, empowering, magical feeling when this does happen. And the other thing is you have to give yourself the meaning, because you can look up any of the symbolism and many times the meanings are very accurate, but more importantly is what something means to you. You can define your own meaning for anything that shows up readily. So I sometimes see goldfinches, and they are a remembrance of a particular person who passed, and the day they passed, a goldfinch was in my yard. And so every time I see goldfinch, I think of that person, and that is my personal symbol of, and it's between that person's spirit and myself. And so this is going to be, I think, largely personal and individual. But I do challenge you to go out and pay attention and find your own signs, because they really are so special and helpful. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please do go ahead and give the thumbs up, subscribe, share with friends. You know the drill. And thank you as always for being with me. I wish you happiness and good health always.